and streaming on the web since 1996. This is Cinematic Sound.
From Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, you're listening to Cinematic Sound Radio, the show dedicated to the music of film, television, and video games. I'm Eric Woods. Hello to all of our listeners at WRock Radio, cinematicsound.net, and through iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, TuneIn, Google Play, or wherever great podcasts are found. It's great to have you on board. If you're listening to this program on iTunes, or through, I think it's called Apple Podcasts now, please take the time to rate and review the show. It really helps the show get noticed. Now, before we get into our Best of 2017 program, I thought I'd produce an old school film music mix show. We're going to play about 20 to 25 random tracks and call it a day. Now, usually these film music mix programs don't have a theme, but this one does. I thought I'd present a program that promoted nothing but positivity, a show that made you feel good, feel happy, a show that puts a smile on your face. So today it's just joyous music, anything goes, film or concert music, fanfares and celebrations, music for fireworks, music for sports, triumphant, strong, bold music, music that will lift your spirit high in the sky and make you forget for a fleeting moment about anything negative going on around you. So, first up today, some event and concert music. We'll begin with John Williams' 1986 Liberty Fanfare, commissioned to celebrate the centennial of the Statue of Liberty on the 4th of July of 1986. This brassy, bold, patriotic piece is superbly performed in this recording by the Boston Pops Orchestra on a album released in 1987 called By Request, The Best of John Williams and the Boston Pops, which featured some of John Williams's greatest hits and a few cues up to that point that we had never heard before or had never been commercially available. We'll then move on to Peter Boyer's Silver Fanfare. This fanfare is the first movement of a 6-movement work called On Music's Wings, which was commissioned for the 25th anniversary season in 2003 and 2004 of the Pacific Symphony in Orange County, California. It's a wonderful work composed in the style somewhat reminiscent of John Williams's most famous fanfares and concert works. Fanfare is still played in concert halls today, and Boyer is one of the most in-demand orchestrators in Hollywood today, and is still commissioned to write pieces for the concert hall. The recording we'll feature for you comes from a Peter Boyer compilation album released on Naxos Music, featuring Boyer conducting the London Philharmonic Orchestra. Here now, John Williams' Liberty Fanfare and Peter Boyer's Silver Fanfare. That was the London Philharmonic Orchestra conducted by Peter Boyer in a performance of Silver Fanfare, composed by Peter Boyer. We also heard in there Liberty Fanfare, composed and conducted by John Williams and performed by the Boston Pops Orchestra.
You're listening to the film, television, and video game music radio show, Cinematic Sound.
Welcome back to the program. Up next, we'll take to the air. First, you'll hear John Addison's rousing music from the 1956 biopic called Reach for the Sky, which told the heroic story of the legless RAF pilot Douglas Bader. This piece just soars under the baton of Rumen Gamba, conducting the BBC Concert Orchestra for Chandos Records, release of the film music of John Addison. We'll then move on to a suite from Lee Holdridge and his score to the 1995 film The Tuskegee Airman, which told the story of the first all-African-American Air Force squadron during World War II. The score is an exciting brass-heavy score with some incredible orchestral flourishes. However, the suite you're going to hear really hammers home the heroism, sacrifice, and bravery of these men who participated in thousands of combat missions. The original soundtrack recording was released by Prometheus Records and was performed by the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. However, for this recording, we're going to play a track from a Varese Sarabande Records album called The High and the Mighty, A Century of Flight, with Richard Kaufman conducting the London Symphony Orchestra. Here now, Reach for the Sky by John Addison and the Tuskegee Airman Suite, composed by Lee Holdridge. that was the London Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Richard Kaufman, performing a suite composed by Lee Holdridge from the 1995 film called The Tuskegee Airman. We also heard in there the BBC Concert Orchestra, conducted by Rumen Gamba, and that was a track from the film Reach for the Sky, released in 1956. It comes off a Chandos Records album called The Film Music of John Addison.
The home for film, television, and video game music since 1996. This is Cinematic Sound.
Celebration by Clint Mansell from the 2005 film Sahara. Welcome back to the program. My name is Eric Woods and I'm your host. And on today's program, we're featuring joyous music. Up next, we're going to play a couple more concert works which revolve around fireworks. Here, let me explain. First up, music by Spanish composer Alfons Conde. Now, I don't think many people know this, but unless, of course, you own the album, but back in 2008, Movie Score Media released Alfons Conde's horror score to The Abandoned, a film released in 2006. Now, at the end of that album, producer Mikael Carlson included two concert pieces by Conde as bonus tracks. The first was an adagio called Color of Time. The second bonus track was a mammoth 9-minute suite called Fireworks Overture. We're going to play that suite for you, which is a homage to many of the great contemporary orchestral film composers of the last 30 to 40 years. The piece is rather schizophrenic. It really is all over the place. Then there is a lot going on, lots of stops and starts and various ideas getting thrown here and there and everywhere. The performance is admirable, but there's a lot of squawky notes, and it's a very dry recording. Unfortunately, I'm not sure who performed the music or when the piece was written or if it was commissioned. Anyway, it's a unique piece, and if you haven't heard it, then this is new to you. And even with the minor errors in performance, and I'm sure you'll enjoy what you hear. We'll then move on to another fireworks-inspired piece composed by Jerry Goldsmith called Fireworks. Fireworks, or A Celebration of Los Angeles, was composed for the finale of Goldsmith's first concert series with the Los Angeles Philharmonic at the Hollywood Bowl in 1999. Goldsmith calls the piece a grand celebration of his childhood, the growing years, his years of maturity, and all the events that climaxed with his first experience at the Hollywood Bowl. In this recording, Jerry Goldsmith conducts the London Symphony Orchestra. This comes off an album called Christus Apollo, which features 3 Goldsmith concert works, Fireworks, Christus Apollo, and music for orchestra. And now, here is Fireworks Overture by Alfons Conde, and then Fireworks, A Celebration of Los Angeles, with music composed by Jerry Goldsmith. That again was the London Symphony Orchestra, this time conducted by Jerry Goldsmith in a performance of his Fireworks, a Celebration of Los Angeles Overture, which comes off an album called Christus Apollo from Telarc Records. We also heard in there the Fireworks Overture, composed by Alfons Conde, and that comes off the original soundtrack recording to The Abandon, which is available on Movie Score Media.
On the air and streaming on the web since 1996, this is Cinematic Sound.
Kingdom Celebration from Alan Menken's wonderful score to the 2010 Walt Disney animated film Tangled. Up next, we're going to play music written for dragons. Up first, Patrick Doyle's over-the-top fantasy adventure music for the 2006 film Eragon, which was based on the Christopher Paolini novel. The film was one of the worst reviewed films of 2006. It was an utter disaster. But like with many failed films, it seems like the composer is the only one truly inspired artist on the project. Patrick Doyle's massive score is super entertaining, and it begins with a wonderful overture comprising of the score's main theme in full glory, performed with gusto by the London Symphony Orchestra under the baton of James Sherman. The last cue in this suite and during this hour comes from the brilliant Finnish composer Panu Aaltio, who is one of film music's rising stars. Last year, he wrote my favorite score of the year for the documentary Tale of a Lake. He is a trained cellist, a graduate of USC's scoring program, and the award-winning composer of Mezza Tirana, The Island of Secrets, Rolly and the Secret of All Time, and this film, Dawn of the Dragonslayer, released in 2012. Aaltio gives this film a big, epic, majestic, exciting, and powerful adventure score, highlighted by this, the finale cue, called A Triumphant Return. And now, Music for Dragons, featuring Patrick Doyle's Eragon and Dawn of the Dragonslayer by Panu Aaltio.
1996. This is Cinematic Sound.
Welcome back to Cinematic Sound Radio. On today's program, Joyous music. As I said at the top of the program, anything goes. We're playing film or concert music for you with fanfares and celebrations. Everything is positive on today's program. I really hope you're enjoying what we have for you today. Our second hour begins with a couple of 1994 live-action films. First up, music from Iron Will, released in 1994. Now, while the budget wasn't astronomical, this was still composer Joel McNeely's first real movie score after writing music for low-budget films and television shows. McNeely was given a big canvas to work with, and he took it and had some fun with it. The temp track bleeds through in this score, but it's still one of the most enjoyable, rousing, uplifting scores these ears have ever heard. The film ends with a deeply dramatic and inspiring finale cue called Crossing the Line that will send shivers up and down your spine. All of the big feels are in this cue. Just listen to those LA brass players give it their all. The cue then segues into a fun end credit cue that perfectly recaps all of the score's main thematic ideas. And now, two tracks from Iron Will, released in 1994, composed by Joel McNeely. This is Crossing the Line, and end credits. music from the 1994 film Iron Will, featuring music by Joel McNeely, and the original soundtrack recording was released on Varese Sarabande Records. Up next is music from the 1994 sports comedy Little Giants, starring Rick Moranis and Ed O'Neill as brothers in a small Ohio town, coaching rival Pee Wee football teams. Composer John Debney, who was just beginning his film career at this time, supplied the film with an old-school, large-scaled inspirational score full of big, militaristic-styled marches and big, optimistic themes. If you're a fan of John Philip Sousa's marches or Jerry Goldsmith's sports scores, then this is right up your alley. Now, the score has never been commercially released, but Debney did release a promo of the score at the time of the film's release. We'll be playing a lengthy suite from that album for you right now. Here's music from Little Giants, with music composed by John Debney. music from Little Giants, featuring original score composed by John Debney, and the original soundtrack recording still isn't commercially released, but it was made available on a promotional album.
On the air and streaming on the web since 1996, this is Cinematic Sound.
Welcome back to the program. We're going to be sticking with sports throughout the rest of the show. So up first, Brian Tyler's dramatic and unconventionally large-scale theme for Fox Sports coverage of golf's U.S. Open back in 2015. The inspiration for this piece was the individual accomplishment of the sport and the heroism shown by golfers on the course. This piece is really like nothing Tyler has ever composed before, and it really does fit with the images that Fox Sports captured of the event back in 2015. We'll then continue with the more triumphant sports music as we move on to Christopher Gordon's music from the 2006 Commonwealth Games held in Melbourne, Australia. This 36-minute piece is highlighted by a track called Welcome to Melbourne, where Gordon really gives his main theme a good and proper workout. Beautifully orchestrated, lots of chirping brass and swirling woodwinds, and in that patented Gordon style with sweeping strings. It's sensational writing. And there's this little Gershwin-type section in this piece for good measure. This is a style of music that Gordon feels right at home with. Just witness some of his scores like Mayo's Last Dancer, Moby Dick, or On the Beach for more examples of his adventurous side. He is so good at it. Lastly in this suite is music from the 2012 Summer Olympic Games in London. This piece, called Parade of the Athletes, comes from an album called A Symphony of British Music, music from the closing ceremonies, and was composed by David Arnold. Now, I can't remember the last time we heard such a lively, enthusiastic piece of orchestral music like this from David Arnold, who is, of course, best known for his work on Stargate, Independence Day, and various James Bond films, among others. David Arnold served as the music director of the closing ceremonies of the Olympic Games in London, and hopefully we hear more music like this again from David Arnold soon. So here now, music from the U.S. Open, composed by Brian Tyler. The track is called Triumph of the Spirit. Then, Welcome to Melbourne, a piece from the 2006 Commonwealth Games music composed by Christopher Gordon. And then Parade of the Athletes, which comes from the closing ceremonies of the 2012 Summer Olympic Games in London, England, with music composed by David Arnold. Music from the 2012 Summer Olympic Games in London, England. That piece was called Parade of the Athletes and was composed by David Arnold. You also heard in there a track called Welcome to Melbourne. That comes from the 2006 Commonwealth Games, music composed by Christopher Gordon. And then we heard in there Triumph of the Spirit from the U.S. Open. That was composed back in 2015 for Fox Sports.
The home for film, television, and video game music since 1996. This is Cinematic Sound.
Welcome back to the show. We have one last piece of Olympic music to play for you, and this time it comes from the 2002 Winter Olympic Games. Now, you might have assumed that we're going to play John Williams' Call of the Champions, which was the official theme of the 2002 Winter Olympic Games in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's a great piece. However, no, we're not playing that piece for you. What we're going to play for you is a cue that was performed for the opening ceremonies called The Fire Within, which was written by Michael Kamen. This is an enormous 9-minute piece that played over what I can only call a visually dazzling segment featuring a lone boy in a red coat with a lantern, and he's skating out in the middle of the stadium surrounded by hundreds of, I guess, winter angels. They're all wearing white and skating around him and frightening him at some point. The middle portion of the suite is actually quite dramatic, but the piece then ends with a big guitar solo with full orchestra and choir in spectacular fashion. This piece is performed by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, the Utah Symphony Orchestra, and the guitar solos were performed by Brian May. This is Michael Kamen's piece called The Fire Within, written for the 2002 opening ceremonies at the Winter Olympic Games in Salt Lake City, Utah. That was the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, the Utah Symphony Orchestra, the chorister of the Cathedral of the Madeline Choir School, with Brian May on guitar. That track was called The Fire Within, composed by Michael Kamen for the 2002 Winter Olympic Games in Salt Lake City, Utah. Well, we've sadly come to the end of yet another edition of Cinematic Sound Radio. I want to thank everyone at W Rock Radio for helping me get this show on the W Rock Radio airwaves. Check them out at wrockradio.com. Feel free to reach out to Cinematic Sound Radio by emailing me at cinematicsound@yahoo.com. Don't forget to visit cinematicsound.net to hear an archived version of this show and years of previous programming as well. We're also on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Please rate and review the show. I also want to thank Tim Burton for lending us his voice for all the bumpers and stingers you hear throughout the program. And of course, composer David Cucina for writing Cinematic Sound Radio's intro music. The last piece we're going to play for you is called Reflections on Earth. It comes from IllumiNations, Reflections of Earth, which is a nighttime show performed nightly at Epcot at the Walt Disney World Resort in Bay Lake, Florida. The show utilizes fireworks, pyrotechnics, water fountains, fire effects, lasers, and searchlights to create a visual production on the park's World Showcase Lagoon. I went to Disney this past August, and I got a chance to see this show again. I actually saw it back when it first premiered in 1999 for the Millennium Celebration, and it was just great to see the show again 19 years later. It's really one of my favorite shows at Walt Disney World. The score was written by Gavin Greenaway, who was actually offered the project by Hans Zimmer, who was initially asked to write the music but was busy on other assignments. Reflections on Earth was recorded with the 71-piece Philharmonic Orchestra and a 30-voice choir. It's a fantastic piece of music and was re-released in 2001 on an album called IllumiNations, Reflections of Earth, Tapestry of Dreams. Well, thanks again for tuning in, folks. I really appreciate it, and I really hope you enjoyed today's program. And until next time, take care and happy listening. Thank you for listening to Cinematic Sound Radio. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us at cinematicsound@yahoo.com. Don't forget to check us out at Cinematic Sound Radio at cinematicsound.net on the web, CinSound Radio on Twitter, and Cinematic Sound on Facebook. And if you listen to us on iTunes, why don't you take a moment right now and rate the show and write a brief review. All reviews help us get noticed on iTunes. And don't forget to tell all your friends about the program as well. Share the show on your favorite social media network. We really appreciate all the support. And don't forget to check out our affiliate at WRock Radio at wrockradio.com.